Welcome to this episode of the Experience Project. Today we are talking about headlamps and basically going to cover some of the features that I'm looking for, just kind of overall on a headlamp, how that's maybe changed over the last handful of years, and also just kind of introduce the review that we're going to do. So yeah, basically big picture, obviously a headlamp has a very basic function to light your way through the mountains as you're hiking and traversing during the night. The things that I want a headlamp to do. One, I want it to be as lightweight as possible. Not necessarily from in the pack, while that's a consideration, is, you know, if you've got the heavier the weight is on the front of the head, like I tend to get headaches from the headband kind of around the side of my head. So if it's really heavy, then you got to get that band tighter. So that's one thing for me. Mark and I did a review on headlamps quite a few years ago, and I didn't realize this until we had done the review, but the quality of the light that is put out by the headlamp can vary greatly. And that sounds funny, but some headlamps will have like even when it's kind of in a flood mode, will have a very bright center spot, and then everything else just gets darker around it. There was, and in particular, there was a Phoenix headlamp, not this one, that had just awesome, you turned it on and it was like going into a room and turning a light switch on. It just lit everything really nice. And I appreciate that when you're kind of hiking down the trail at night, and it's not, in order to see something to your left, you don't really have to like turn your head and look at it. You just can move your eyes like you would naturally. So something that we'll kind of talk about when we're doing the review portion of this video is the quality of light that it produces. So you kind of want a nice good floodlight for just your trail hiking in the middle of the night. And then you do want a good spotlight for finding your way in the dark. Mark killed a bull last year. We were coming down this kind of spine ridge in the dark, and his battery was running low. My headlamp was running really low. And the next day we had hiked back, and we had chose the wrong route like the entire way down it and made it way harder than it needed to be. But in the dark, we'd never been in the country before. We didn't know the route out of there. And I wish we had like a really bright spotlight to shine and pick your route. And then obviously you can't run that the entire time because you're going to kill your battery life, but you knock it back down to flood mode, pick your route, get to a point where you need to find it again, turn on the spotlight. So that's something. You want a good flood for hiking, you want a good spotlight for kind of route finding in the dark. Obviously you want easy controls, how do the buttons work, how do you navigate between on and off, things like that. Easy buttons to manipulate. You absolutely want a locking feature. So when the headlamp is in your pack, whether it's in your lid or side pocket or whatever, you want to be able to lock the headlamp so that it can't turn on accidentally and kill your battery. And then another important consideration is, what happens when the battery gets low? Do you replace batteries? Do you recharge batteries? If you got built-in battery, things that I'm really looking for with, like, some headlamps have a built-in battery, like this Nightcore, I believe it's called a UL25, crazy light, throws out a pretty good bright light on there, but you can operate it while you're charged into a battery bank. So instead of, like my go-to forever has been this black diamond headlamp, and you open up the case and you got 3 AAA batteries inside there that you can just swap out. So I just make sure I've got 3 fresh ones in there on a hunt, and then I'll have 3 extra in my stash pocket, and that's kind of been my go-to for a lot of years. You get something like this that's got a built-in battery. The advantage is you can fully charge it, and so you can have a really bright headlamp all the time. The black diamond one, as we'll show like in the review video, we'll set up all the headlamps at dark, like on a wall, and just run a time lapse of it and just show you as the minutes and hours go by, how the headlamps get duller and duller and duller, which one's going to kind of maintain the brightness the longest, last the longest, etc. The advantage with the built-in stuff is that you can just have it fully charged all the time. You could, plug it in your pack, have it charged, and it's bright all the time, versus these, it's kind of the slow progression of dimming to where you finally get frustrated to the point where you need to swap out the batteries. So I'm looking for the ability on one with a built-in battery to be able to charge and operate at the same time. So you got a battery bank. It probably, if you have a headlamp, worth getting a longer cord, so you could potentially like put that battery bank in the lid of your pack, and then the cord might be kind of annoying dangling around your neck, but at least you've got that option. So something to pay attention to. Some headlamps don't have that option. When they're charging, they cannot be operated, which is a big kind of oversight in my opinion, specifically for our application of backcountry hunting. Other ones that I think fall into like a really cool category, like the Phoenix one, you can buy batteries for it. This is a night core battery, but the same battery that works in the Phoenix as well. That they've got their own built-in USB-C port. So you could potentially have this plugged in your pack, charging, fully charged, ready to go. It's even got a little indicator light in there to tell you it's fully charged, and then be running this headlamp. When the battery gets low enough to a point, you just stop and swap them out. I think that's a really good compromise. You get into, we've kind of got a spectrum of weights here, the peaks being the heaviest. So it's coming in at 4.5 ounces. One of the reasons it weighs so much is it's got a really big battery inside of it. It's significantly larger, I believe 4 times larger than the battery that come with the Phoenix. So it is going to have very long runtime specs, but you are dealing with that kind of heavier weight on your forehead, which to me I just don't like when I'm hiking. It's more bouncy. You got to get the headband tighter. Gives me a little bit of headache. Where the Phoenix, you are so you go from 4.5 ounces to 2.8. So you got like a 1.7 ounce difference there. You can laugh at 1.7 ounces, or obviously some ounces add up and ounces matter. So you could run this super small battery with that and swap them back and forth and probably get similar performance out of them. Pros and cons of all these different systems. That's why we're just going to do this review, give you our feedback, kind of make a couple suggestions of this one's best performance, period. This one's best for the weight. This one's the longest battery life. We'll just kind of go through all these different categories. But in general, those are kind of just some of the features I'm looking for. Just to recap, a good floodlight for hiking with a nice even beam on it, a good spotlight for wayfinding. I want a good battery life. I want it to be as lightweight as possible, and I want a locking feature on there so that I can lock it down when I put it in the pack and I don't have to worry about the light turning on and the battery dying on me. So we'll report back with more information from our review on these. For more information, stay tuned to the Experience Project.